If you look at the retro gaming market, it's becoming more and more popular for emulation-based devices to be hit in the market in the form of actual micro game consoles that emulate some of your favorite games, to a more popular choice that we frequently see, which are retro emulation handhelds. And I recently even reviewed one with the R36S, and I had a lot of really positive, great things to say about that device. But in my time researching that device before purchasing it, another one that commonly popped up on places like Temu, places like AliExpress, and of course Amazon, were these generic 401 gaming consoles. And these little devices, part of their appeal from looking at them on places like Temu especially, is they can be found for as cheap as like $10. So when you're looking at a retro device or an emulation device to play some classic games, I can see the appeal and why people may pick this device up over some of the more expensive devices like the R36S, for example. And in this video, I'm going to go over this device, what sort of games it offers, and ultimately why I probably wouldn't recommend it to most people. So let's take a look. Out of the box, this basically only came with like an old school micro USB wire for charging this device. It is a rechargeable device. Nothing else. There were no pack-in earbuds, no carrying case. It was pretty much just the device and that wire. However, going into the device and powering it up, you have a very simple interface. You have two options, English or Chinese, that you can select from. Once you pick your language, you go into the game selection list. Now, going through the list, you will see some familiar titles. Of course, the most familiar one being Mario for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The game list here is comprised of a lot of Nintendo games from the original Nintendo, as well as some old school arcade games, like you have a version of Pac-Man on here, as well as even some games that were, as I understand, fan-made games, like there's a Mortal Kombat 4 running on Nintendo Entertainment System level of graphics, and that game never came out for the Nintendo Entertainment System, so you can only assume it was a ROM hack of some sort. However, those are the types of games that comprise this list. And one thing I want to emphasize and highlight is, as I understand, this device cannot be modded. You can't add more ROMs. The 400 games that you get on this are what you get, and that's it. So if you're looking at a device that you can add more ROMs to or add different games to, this device is definitely not it. Now, going into testing the games, I tested Mario pretty extensively on this. And testing the games on this device, they play and they operate smoothly. They feel like the old school versions of those games. But there's one big glaring problem with them, and that's that the controls are not very responsive. While your face A and B buttons appear to work decently, your D-pad seems to stall out, and in some cases it just doesn't register the button press, which makes playing on this feel pretty bad, especially on a game like Super Mario Brothers. And this wasn't just a ROM issue, this was an issue that appeared to extend to other games that I tested. I randomly picked Friday the 13th at the filming of this video, and it also appeared to be an issue as well, and I think it's just the poor build quality of this device in general. Now, moving a bit further into it as well, the screen itself is not great. I don't know what type of screen it is, but it's just not a good one. The viewing angles on it suck. You look at it from the sides, and if you're not basically facing it head on, it just doesn't look great. And even when the games are vibrant games, this screen just doesn't seem to be able to output the level of coloration that you'd expect on an emulation device. Like if you compare this to the R36S, that thing has an incredible screen compared to this. So this device is very lacking in that department. Now, going into the positives of this, I will say one thing. My son and I have charged this device a grand total of 1 time. And we have not had this device die. Now here's the thing, I don't even know how much battery life it has because it doesn't really tell you. But my son when he received this originally, he just left this thing on, and I'm probably talking about 10 hours. We haven't charged it since that time period. It's still not dead. So the battery life, or whatever it's storing, or however it stored the battery life, appears to be exceptional on this device. However, if you're like me and you really dislike the thumb pad, I highly doubt you would ever put that amount of time into playing on this device for that to even matter. So overall, I can see some people purchasing this for their kids, purchasing this as almost a throwaway device that is more of a novelty for their kids to play some old school games that older individuals like myself grew up on. But as a dedicated retro gaming device, I heavily recommend skipping this, even for the very appealing price tag, and looking at something better like the R36S.